You are listening to the Two Deep NFL podcast. With you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports. I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. If you're catching us via the podcast, remember, we stream live on Tuesdays, about 9 o'clock, coming at you a little bit early if you're catching us via the stream here on a Tuesday. The NFL schedule dropped at the end of last week. We are breaking it down. What are the 5 biggest games? We've each got 5 different ones. There could have very easily been some overlap, but we all put our games together. So we're going to give you 15 juicy games, right? 15 games that are going to shape the 2023 NFL season. These are the ones you circle. These are the ones you must see. If you don't, you'll really be making a big mistake. We're going to break it all down right now. Thanks to our friends at GAN Asphalt and Concrete on the Two Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the Two Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Two Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Two Deep is proudly brought to you by GAN Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at ganasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. GAN Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. GAN Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out ganasphalt.com for more info. Now, here are the hosts of the Two Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And welcome back to the 2D podcast. The NFL has done something brilliant. They have managed to turn the releasing of their schedule into like a 3-day affair with all kinds of, I'm assuming, orchestrated leaks. Although, as we talked about in our previous podcast, Jeff, there is a lot of you had to sign a confidentiality agreement after you knew what the schedule was, right? This is a big deal, even though everybody and their brother, by the time the show finally rolls around on your network, it seems like most of the games are out there. Like, who's not living up to this confidentiality agreement?
I don't know. Maybe the people back in the league office. I feel like I'm like Donald Trump or Barack Obama. They're going to come find like confidential documents around my house lying around, like a Cowboys schedule or a Packers schedule. And I'll be in some kind of trouble, but yeah, it's a great trick they've created for themselves. People can't wait to find out they're going to play games in this league in the fall.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, and of course, it does kind of kick off the gambling season as well, Eric. Right? Because now we know in what order they're all going to be. We get a feel for it. Now you can really take shape of what it is. We've known the opponents, but when they play them, who are they getting on short rest? Who do they have to play on a Thursday? Who do they get the bye weeks? This is a big part of the equation as well, especially for, like we said, for the betting markets that are out there as well.
Yeah, for sure. It very much is, an important, you put in like the sides and totals with weather, how much rest you get. Like on the game by game, like sort of planning for the season, it's not that impactful. It's like maybe a half a win or so, but for the point spread and stuff like that, it's a couple points, right? Which can obviously, as you know, Petro, because you gamble a fair amount, like it can be the difference between winning and losing a bet, even though over the course of a season, it kind of evens out and stuff. For those individual games, it matters a lot.
All right. Who wants the honors? We've each got 5 games that we're going to put out there as games that will shape the season. Who wants the honor to fire first on this? Jeff, you want the honors?
I'll take it. Sure.
Okay. All right. First game that pops up that's going to shape the season. What is it?
Week 1, September 11th, Monday Night Football, Bills at New York Jets. This, as someone who lived in New York during 9/11, I know how emotional this game is. So there will be a lot of fanfare around that element of it, the emotion of it. But Aaron Rodgers' first game, the Bills obviously eager to show that they are still the dominant force in the AFC East. I think we'll learn a lot. I'm usually not as big on openers, but I think we will learn a lot about both these teams in this game, both these quarterbacks, both these coaches, Sean McDermott calling the defense, with Leslie Frazier stepping away as defensive coordinator. I just think that if there's one game in week one that's going to really set the tone for this season in the AFC, it's going to be this one.
Eric, first of all, real quick on Jeff's game, you like this one being one of the big ones? Like, is this opportunity lost if Aaron Rodgers doesn't jump out of the gates here quick early and establish themselves as a threat?
No, I think there's a lot of parallels between what the Jets are going to go through this year and what Tampa Bay went through in 2020, right? All the way down to the fact that the team that won their division the year that Tampa won the Super Bowl is going to play them in week one. And Tampa, got beat by the Saints week one, got swept by them, went all the way around and actually, ultimately beat them in the playoffs and won a Super Bowl from the 5 seed. Like, I think this game is actually more important to the Bills than it is to the Jets. But I agree with Jeff. It's a very compelling game.
Well, I'll disagree with you, Eric, specifically, just because Aaron Rodgers ain't Tom Brady, right? We know that. It didn't Aaron Rodgers play. It didn't Tom Brady playing another year to avoid going into the Hall of Fame at the same time that Aaron Rodgers is, right? It's Aaron Rodgers avoiding being stuck in the same Hall of Fame ceremony and playing second fiddle to Tom Brady. He ain't Joe Cool like Tom Brady. I disagree. I think they got to hit the ground running and gain momentum because Aaron Rodgers is kind of a goof, and I don't think he circles the wagons. I don't think he has the leadership skills. I think they need to get off to a good start, and so I think it's important for them to establish themselves and get going. I kind of disagree on that one. Eric, what's your first game that comes up that's going to shape the season?
I have a couple that are early in the season. My first is Green Bay going to Chicago in week one. Jordan Love's first start. And it's also kind of like what I think Bears fans believe will be the coronation of Justin Fields. You get enough into the depths of the majesty that is Bears Twitter during the course of this offseason, and no one, when they had the number one pick, and people are like, well, why don't you just take Bryce Young and trade Justin Fields? And they got the blaspheme that you got screamed at you for even thinking that. The Bears really do want to be a thing. They got to win this game. They're favored by 1.5 to 2.5 points. I personally think Green Bay will win this game, and I think Jordan Love's not going to be as good as Rodgers, but I think he's going to color within the lines a lot better than Rodgers did. And so that coupled with the fact that I think Green Bay's defense is going to be this year what we all thought it was going to be last year, because that's how defense works. I think the Packers are going to be the team, in this game that demonstrates that they're not out of it in the NFC quite yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm probably going to be betting the Packers to win their division before the season starts. Jeff, do you like this game? Do you think it's important for Jordan Love to hit the ground running, or more important for the Bears to prove that they made the right choice in staying with their guy?
Yeah, no, I think certainly this is a huge game for Jordan Love in terms of everything Eric just said, but also I think we underestimate how much Matt LaFleur spent the last couple seasons trying to get Aaron Rodgers to accept what he wanted to do offensively. And so I think you're going to see more of not just what Jordan Love is as a quarterback, what Matt LaFleur wants to be as an offensive play caller. And so, I hear what Eric's saying, but I also feel like the Bears are going to be one of the more overrated stories as well this season. I think they will be improved, but they're going to be the worst team in that division. And I think the Lions can win this division running away, to be honest with you. I think either one of these teams are going to be close to what Detroit is.
Okay.
Jeff, be still my heart at this point. I know you were late to, you didn't want to believe it, but I can't, I'm so happy. I can't wait till we're mid-season and the Lions are 9-2 and Petro is just beside himself. But I can't wait.
I don't know that I'll be beside myself, but if the Lions are ever 9-2, I will be surprised. I will tell you that. I don't even care what the order of the games are. I will be surprised. I don't think Dan Campbell is – first of all, their draft, might work out okay for this year, but it speaks again that they're not quite getting it. And I don't understand why you think that they would come out of training camp and fall flat on their face to start last year, why they're going to suddenly be ready to rock and roll coming out early. But
they didn't fall flat on their face last year. They covered the first 3 games of the year.
1-6?
They covered the first 3 games of the year.
Those
they
are
started to
real
suck when
wins.
Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt, but like they were fine the first month of the year.
Jeff?
Boy, I'm with you on this. They stumbled out of the gate, but they found a way to finish fast. They were playing close games. I think the way the NFC is situated and the way that division is situated, they could easily be an 11-win team. I think they have the look of a team that's going to be double-digit win. Now, how they get there, I don't know, but I think they're going to be at least 11 wins.
Okay. All right. Eric, let's stay with you. You've got another week 1 game that you think is.
I do. Let me make sure I get. Okay. So this is one because of the way the AFC works itself out, right? Where let's just assume that the division winners are the favorites: Jacksonville, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. Then I think you have reasonable playoff contenders in Baltimore, Cleveland, maybe Pittsburgh, probably not. The Jets, the Dolphins, San Diego, Denver, Miami going to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. That's like almost an elimination game, I feel like. And
week 1.
Yeah, I because like I said, like if you're behind, like you're gonna lose a tiebreaker to one of these because it's a true tiebreaker, right? Because you're not gonna split or anything dumb like that. You're not, the Chargers have to leapfrog the Chiefs to win their division and hide from this game. The Dolphins have to leapfrog the Jets and the Bills to win their division and hide from this game. All likelihood, these teams are going to be battling for a wild card, and this game is going to mean a lot. And Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. I do like, 2.5-point favorites. I make them 3.5-point favorites when I looked at my numbers. I think the Chargers win this game, and I think it puts Miami behind the 8 ball in that really, really tough division for the whole season.
I'm with you. This is one of the games I had a big list, and we didn't want to overlap. And so when you had this one, I picked a different game that's going to be in there. But I agree, Jeff. I mean, I think, this is the Dolphins need to prove to themselves that they are legit and that they're back. And I think the Chargers is big for Staley to get going on the right foot. Like, I don't think they need to, come out of the gate slow and have everybody talking about the coach being fired. I think Eric's right on this one. I think this is huge.
Well, it's also huge because the Chargers were one of the first teams to really show the formula for how to contain the Dolphins last year, right? Because Tua was playing in this game last year, and they had all kinds of answers for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in that offense. And so I feel like it's a really good matchup of offense, defense on both sides of it. Now you got the Dolphins bringing Vic Fangio in, who's very familiar with the Chargers, and Jalen Ramsey as the secondary. You've got Chubb, you've got, more pass rushers. You got a lot of people. You got a lot of things in play for it to be a great game. So I don't know if it's going to be an elimination game, but I do agree with Eric. Both these teams are going to be fighting for wild card spots at the end of the year.
And don't you know Tua needs to have a game on Herbert? Right, like that's something that you've got the match that their same quarterback class and everything. Yeah, I love that game. I think it's great. I'll give you a game that's week 2. We'll move on. Chiefs at Jags. This is a game that I don't know that the Jaguars have to win, but I think they're going to need it to validate who they are. I think Trevor Lawrence, I've said all along, is Matt Ryan-esque much more than he is Patrick Mahomes. I go on with the station in Jacksonville, and they think that Trevor Lawrence is Mahomes, right? That they're ready to just go all in with him. He is a good, solid quarterback, but he does not do the special things. But Jacksonville has to prove after they spent a ton of money. Doug Peterson was in Kansas City for year 1 and 2. Year 1, they blew out all the salary cap in Kansas City in 2013. 2014, they came back. They still won. They were 9-7, but they lagged back out of the playoffs. And that's going to happen. The Jags, there's nothing. What's new with the Jags this year, right? Like, not a whole lot. And also putting a bunch of money into Evan Ingram has not proved to be a smart decision in the past. So I think they need to get some momentum and they need to feel good about themselves. Eric, I think the Jaguars, could be that they're that classic, took a step forward. Now they're going to take one back before they take two forward and have a 7-10 and 8-9 type of season this year. They need to at least play well in this game. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that on the Red, Gold, and Bold, the Best Chiefs podcast, previous episode. I don't know who is going to be the team that pops up and is kind of that like not great team that wins that division if Jacksonville falters, but there's a 50% chance I think Jacksonville falters. I mean, they get Calvin Ridley. That's a good addition for them. They lose Jawan Taylor. You know, they did a good job, I felt, in the draft, trading back a few times. Like, I'm not like that down on them. I think Doug Peterson's a good coach. They battled last year. They were, 3-7, but had like a positive point differential. They fought back. Like, there's a lot to like about the Jags, but yeah, in this game, if they get throttled by the Chiefs, it might just be like, okay, you're a second class. In the same way that, like, in the 90s, the Dallas Cowboys and the Niners were the real teams in the NFC, and the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, and all those other teams were the JV of the NFC. Like, in the AFC, is it just the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs, and then the Jags are kind of like you pat them on the head because they're trying. Like that I think is what you worry about.
Yeah, the Chiefs also two teams that are supposed to win their divisions to open up. So if they would trip up against the Lions, then now they're going on the road against a team that's supposed to win the division. Are you a believer in the Jags being for real this year, Jeff? There's a stat that when you go from double-digit losses to double-digit wins, you generally regress back to like a 7-9-ish range. They didn't quite get there. They were 9-8, but they did win their division. So they kind of fall into that category. Do you see regression for the Jags?
I think they're a lot like Buffalo was the first couple of years with Josh Allen, where the AFC East was such a, not a mess, but it was very mediocre. The Patriots were starting to fall, were starting to fade. The Jets and the Dolphins couldn't figure it out, and they were getting some easy wins. I look at that division. I look at two teams starting rookie quarterback potentially at some point in the season. Ryan Tannehill is on his last legs, and the Titans, we saw what they were. They started getting banged up with injuries last year. Maybe Mike Vrabel can concoct some magic again and have them in the hunt down the stretch. But I think Jacksonville just feels like they're in a pretty comfortable spot in terms of just they just play average football. They should be able to get to 9 wins. But I don't think I agree with you. I don't think they're that much better than they were last year from what I saw in their offseason.
Jeff, in week 2, you've got Seahawks at Lions circled as one of the games. Why this one?
Because, and I didn't want to tip my hand talking about the Lions, previously, but I think if the Lions lose to the Chiefs and they lose to the Seahawks, you don't want to be an 0-2 team. It's be a rough week for me and Eric Eager sitting here talking about how great they're going to be. So the Seahawks are starting with a very winnable game against the Rams. And I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. I just don't feel as if we're all saying the Chiefs are going to come in here and take an L against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1, that you could not afford to start slow. And certainly all the things you mentioned about the draft picks and the way they've approached the offseason, the moves they've made, the hype surrounding them. If you were 1-6 last year, you don't want to be 0-2 this year. So this game has huge ramifications for what the Lions want their season to be.
You think the Lions are better than the Seahawks, Eric? I mean, this is their chance to prove it, obviously, but do you like them as a better team than the Seahawks?
I think they're similar. Jeff's right. They've gotten better. I think that they're still weak, kind of interior offensive line, edge on defense, like pass rusher, but they get a great corner. That I think they screwed up the Lions draft by taking Devon Witherspoon at 5. Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the best picks in the draft, in my opinion, from a value standpoint. Geno Smith and Jared Goff are very similar. Yeah, I love this game. I love this pick by Jeff. It'll be a big game. I think Detroit can obviously claw out of 0-2 and win that division, but 0-2 is historically a really tough place to claw out of.
All right, Eric, you've got the next one on the schedule, week 4, October 1st, Chiefs at Jets. Is this by now the Jets are put up or shut up?
I think this is just fun because Aaron Rodgers plays Patrick Mahomes for the first time in theory, right? Like, we've never seen that before. 2019, Mahomes was injured, so it was Matt Moore. A very valiant fight by the Chiefs in that game and a loss at Arrowhead. And then the 2 years after that, it was Jordan Love Chiefs, and that was when the Chiefs were really struggling. Rodgers was an MVP type season. We've never gotten to see them play each other, so I think getting to see them play each other will be really fun. Ramification side, it means more to the Jets probably than it does to the Chiefs. I think any one game means very little to the Chiefs at this point. But, if the Jets struggle out the gate against Buffalo and so forth, this might mean a lot.
You had the Bills and Jets in week 1, Jeff, is one of the big ones. I mean, can we agree that the Jets got to take one of these two down if they're to be taken serious?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. You can't you're not going to be able to hide from these teams and call yourself a real Super Bowl contender. And the Jets, if they don't reach the Super Bowl this year, it's going to be a failure. And so you have to make these kind of statement games count when they come around. I agree with Eric. I think the Chiefs are not going to go in here and be bummed if they lose this game. I think they're at the point now in their evolution where they understand the importance of, gelling at the right point, hitting your stride, hitting your peak as the season, continues on, staying healthy. And I mean, I just think if Aaron Rodgers plays poorly in some of these games against the Josh Allens, against the Patrick Mahomes, all that love he's getting from all these New York media outlets is going to change in a hurry. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot more pressure on the Jets to win this kind of a game.
Tommy was asking the question, Eric, what do you think? Could the Jets be favored in this game? I mean, can you see that flipping around that far? Like, how impressive would they have to be the favorite in this game?
No.
You don't see any scenario that has that?
No. Chiefs are -3 in Tampa in 2020. Like, again, like I somewhat disagree with Jeff that like if the Jet, because like you think about like Peyton Manning when he took over in Denver, they started 2-2, 2-3 kind of thing. It took a while. They lost to Houston at home. They lost, I think, week 1. I can't remember who they lost to. It took a little bit, right? And like Brady's Bucks, they got swept by the Saints. They got killed by the Saints in Tampa. Then they lose to Kansas City in a game that was, final score was closer than the real game. So like, I'm more looking at this. I don't think it's a must-win for either team. I just think it's super compelling because we're seeing kind of one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play against the most talented quarterback who's playing right now. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. And Bills at Cowboys, Patriots, that's what the Jets have before they host the Kansas City Chiefs. It's their third home game in 4 weeks. They better get some momentum going because there's obviously road games lining up on down the road after that. Let's go to week 5. One of the games I've got, Panthers at Lions. This is one where the Lions, you guys drool all over them. All the national media drools all over them. This is a game of the Panther team that's an upstart one that Eric, I picked this one largely off of what Eric said. Didn't Eric pick the Panthers to go to the Super Bowl?
I did not pick the Panthers.
Did he?
When did that happen?
Didn't he like several weeks ago? You said rookie quarterbacks on a rookie contract. Carolina Panthers will run the division. I don't think you said like they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl, but you like had a scenario that had them going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a very good bet to win the NFC South because the NFC South is the junior varsity of the NFL.
And if they're gonna get on a run, then they should handle a team like the Lions, right? Like to me, this is a great measuring stick.
The Lions are a wag, though. They can't.
Could they win?
They should handle like Minnesota or Green Bay or like something like that. The Lions are a wagon. So
then
they should handle this game easily, right?
Yeah. I'm with you, Soren. Like the Panthers dominated the Lions last year in a late game that had huge playoff implications. Ran the ball right down their throat, which is why Jack Campbell is a first-round pick this year. So I almost picked this game too for the same reasons. I think it's a very underrated matchup at a key point in the season for a team like Detroit that wants to be able to, they're about grit and grinding it out and toughness. The Panthers, they're going to be running the ball again with a rookie quarterback, so they better be ready for it.
And they've got Frank Reich to call the show, who I think is a quality head football coach. Listen, I could pick all the Bills games, all the Chiefs games, all the Bengals games.
No, this is a good pick.
Eagles games. So, I mean, I think this is one that's
ball
off the radar that I think could. It also will be a great measuring stick for Bryce Young, and Jared Goff needs the game too.
I think he's going to ring it right about 5.5.
Jared Goff can't come in and get smoked by the rookie quarterback, right? He's trying to hold on to his job with the Lions as well. So I think there's a lot of implications in this one. All right, let's go to week 5 with you, Eric. You've got another early one. Jaguars versus Bills, October 18th. Why does this one stand out to you?
Well, for one, the Jags play in London back-to-back weeks, which is an unprecedented situation. That's pretty cool. To the same reason you like Jags Chiefs, I think this is maybe a little bit more the speed of the Jaguars. If we find out who the Jags are, they get through the first month of the year. Let's say they're 3-1, 2-2, 3-1. I think Buffalo is not as good as Kansas City is this year. So maybe this is a better measuring stick than seeing how they do against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Jeff. This comes down to also, are the Bills still one of the top contenders? Right, they're an afterthought for a lot of people. It's all Chiefs, Bengals in the AFC. No one's talking Bills at all. This is a game that they would need to make a statement with.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs. I think the Bills are in a really good spot for a team that wants to try to win a championship without a quarterback playing on a rookie deal, because there's so much skepticism around them. So many people who are writing them off, and they're still a good team. They're not like they just became dog crap overnight. I mean, they still have one of the best top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, and the offense is still going to be good with Stephon Diggs. You mentioned James Cook in the previous podcast. And you look at what they have defensively. I mean, they lose some decent players, but I think having Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde back at safety is a big get for them, even at age 32. And so I feel like they're going to be a much tougher team. And again, like a game like Jacksonville will allow them to showcase some of their strengths. I think that they are much closer to being a 12-13 win team than people realize.
Yeah, I agree. And not having, the target on their back, which I think was a little bit of the problem, certainly was the problem coming down the stretch last year. I also, frankly, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If it doesn't snow, right, I think they beat the Bengals, right? That neutralizes a pass rush and helped out a Bengals offensive line that got worked over the next week against Kansas City when it wasn't in the snow. And I think that was a big part of it. I'm not so sure that the Buffalo Bills aren't sitting there thinking, and if you played it again without snow, that they don't beat the Bengals, and maybe it's a different game in the AFC Championship game than what we saw the Chiefs handling the Bengals. I think that's a big one as well. By the way, speaking of big, if your business has parking lot problems, it's a lot of times the first impression you can make with a client. Don't make a bad one. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete make your parking lot as perfect as possible. Full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor Gann Asphalt's nationally recognized for their ability to make parking lot problems disappear. Been doing it in Kansas City since 1994. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find Gann Asphalt and Concrete right now online at GannAsphalt.com. Jeff, let's go to week 6, one of your games, Cowboys at Chargers. Like this, going interconference. Why is this one shaped the league?
Well, it's a critical stretch in the season for the Chargers because they play the Chiefs right after this game. So that is a huge thing for them. But secondly, I think Kellen Moore going to the Chargers as their offensive coordinator is one of the biggest hires of the offseason. And as much as we've debated who Justin Herbert is and what he can be, I think Kellen Moore can unlock that potential. And I think you look at what they have offensively. When Dak Prescott was playing his best football in Dallas with Kellen Moore calling the plays there, versatile running back, athletic tight ends, veteran receivers. I think they have a lot of elements there to make it work. Big, strong offensive line. And Mike McCarthy has called him out. Mike McCarthy said, hey, this guy was a problem. Too aggressive, too worried about style points. And so I think there's some bad blood there. And I also feel like both these teams are going to be playing for wild card spots. And the Cowboys, too, they got to come back. I think they got a tough game after this as well. So that they've got, I think they play the 49ers or the Eagles or somebody. They got, after they play the Chargers there, they got like a really tough game. So both these teams have to get wins and to avoid losing back-to-back big games.
Yeah, you mentioned the Cowboys schedule. They're at the 49ers before, home for the Rams after this game. Eric, this is kind of a big quarterback matchup, right? Two guys that, one who's presumably going to get a big fat contract before the season starts, Justin Herbert. Dak Prescott, who's already got it, yet they don't have a lot of impressive performances in the postseason. This is a chance to at least put some kind of notch on their belt as well. It's important for the quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's really funny. The Cowboys got an acquisition in the offseason that I think would have really helped the Chargers, right? The Chargers drafted Quentin Johnston, but what they really needed was a player like Brandon Cooks. Like they were, the Chargers have two kind of big, possession-y type receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they really struggle with the down the field stuff. Quentin Johnston is at least fast, but he doesn't strike me as the field stretcher that Brandon Cooks is. The Cowboys lose more, which is a very good point by Jeff, but they do get that secondary target that they really struggled with last year, with Dalton Schultz not earning the franchise tag number that he got, and CeeDee Lamb being good, but not the everything everywhere all at once wide receiver that maybe people expected out of him. So I like the Dallas Cowboys personnel. I do think they lose a lot and more, and I do think that the Chargers are lacking a little personnel wise, but they get Kellen Moore, which should help. So it is a very interesting matchup. I like this one by Jeff.
Yeah, but then they ought to be settled in with Kellen Moore as well. All right, I'll take us to week 9, November 5th, Bills at Bengals, right? Bengals, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals. This is the big triangle here, but the Bills have payback on their mind. And Jeff, kind of like what we were just talking about, I do think that the Bills are going to be either the team or the second best team in the AFC. Right? If Kansas City holds on to that spot, I don't think it's going to be Cincinnati. I'm not as bullish on the Bengals as you are, Jeff. We talked about that, earlier. But I think this is the chance for the Bills to get real confident and prove to themselves that they are back and they can be the top dog. This is it's obviously a tiebreaker late, but I think this could be for either the number 1 or 2 spot in the AFC, and it'll be huge come playoff time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I feel like the Bills learned a valuable lesson the Chiefs learned in 2018 or in 2019, which is even though you have all these great assets on offense, you still got to find a way to slow people down on defense. And I think there was a shock to their system how slow they looked compared to the Bengals down the stretch in those 2 games they played last year. That obviously they didn't play a quarter in Cincinnati, but that game started off fast for the Bengals, and then in that snow fest in Buffalo, they had no answers for the Bengals offense. Sean McDermott calling plays, finding a way to be more, to deal more with athletic teams, with faster teams is going to be critical to whatever Bill success they have. And so I'm intrigued to see how they match up with a team like the Bengals in a game like this, because the Bengals can give them a lot of problems just with their athletic ability on offense.
Yeah, this one obviously is 2 of the big boys, Eric. You like it. To be the one that ends up determining which one of these has the higher seed?
I think so. I think Jeff makes a really good point about the Bills kind of being if you wanted a dark horse team that could really win the Super Bowl, the Bills are that team lagging behind. I think the narratives with Rodgers and Mahomes obviously having won 2 already. Von Miller will probably be back by now, which is another thing to the point of they have enough young pass rushers in Rousseau and Epineza and so maybe he can come back and be like a situational guy, much like he was for the Rams when they made their Super Bowl run, when he joined that team midseason. There's some stuff to Kahir Elam, Tre'Davious White a year after the ACL. I think that the Bills are going to surprise some people. And, I think that they hope it's kind of in the way the 2019 Chiefs did it, where it's kind of even or the 2022 Chiefs, where the second half of the season where they were playing ho-hum opponents and kind of just sneaking by the narrative surrounding the league.
Yeah, and that is a great point. Even if you're not killing people, you can go on to win a championship because people were scratching their heads. All right, let's go to week 11. This is another one I picked out, and I love it. It's one of my favorite ones because I think this is a game that will mean so much to the 2025 season, and that is the Cardinals and the Texans. This is the battle for who is going to have the number 1 pick. This is the battle for who is going to end up in the driver's seat for Caleb Williams. By now, I expect I want to call him Justin Fields, CJ Stroud to be disappointing. And now the Texans will have their decision. Do they actually dive this game and go for the number 1 pick? Do the Cardinals decide that they're going to, bury this game, get the number 1 pick, move on from Kyler Murray, or does it just set them up to have the number 1 pick and dangle it out there in a trade? But this game is critical for where Caleb Williams will call home next year, because I think yet again the Texans and Cardinals are going to be the 2 worst teams. Jeff, is this the game that determines the number 1?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm not ready to see the Cardinals finding a buyer for a guy they gave $180 million to, guaranteed money. I don't know how that works, But yeah, I'm not a huge Caleb Williams fan either. I get that he's going to be the sexy pick, but to me, he's a lot like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud right now. I don't know if it's the same thing as trying to get Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, I think it will be a game that I think both these franchises. I honestly think both these franchises have good coaches in place. And I think that they're doing some good things after doing years of really stupid, dysfunctional things. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this game has more implications for the draft than anything else.
By the way, and Tommy just made a really good point when he said the Texans don't have that pick, do they? So this is if they're down there fighting for it, this is part of what they traded to get back up to 3 and take the defensive end. So this is
Will Anderson.
The Cardinals have that pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Cardinals battling the Cardinals.
Yeah,
the pick
for the top 2 picks.
The Indianapolis Colts had the first and second pick, where they took famously Steve Ettman.
Yep,
kind of a bust. And Quentin Coriat, who was actually pretty good. Do you know how the Colts got the number 2 pick that year?
Hang on,
Jeff George.
Close.
Hold on. What year was it again?
1992.
Was it Eric Dickerson?
They traded their first round pick in 1991. Tampa Bay traded their first pick in 1991 for Chris Chandler.
Yeah.
Chris Chandler ended up being worth the second overall pick in the 1992 draft, which is insane. But Colts also traded. Yeah, and so that was, and then the 2 Jeff George trades, the one from the Falcons to the Colts, and then from the Colts to the Falcons surrounding that. So, and now you have Houston basically giving those 2 picks to Arizona. The question is going to be, now that you're kind of thinking about, how much do the Cardinals want to be an NBA team and like sort of stack this thing, right? And like, well, we have Kyler Murray. He's already being paid $46 million APY. Do we just get 2 first-rounders for the next 4 years and just like build the ship around Kyler? I think that the Cardinals this year will probably roll over a decent amount of the cap to next year, because if you look at his cap hit, it's like under 20 this year, and then it's like 50 next year. So you can roll that over and kind of smooth it out a little bit. That's really what they have to do. It makes games like this a little bit less compelling that they don't need a quarterback, but still pretty funny.
But it's still going to greatly affect how the draft is going to go.
Oh, of course.
Right? Like, because if they start moving around, then if Caleb Williams does end up being the number 1, and I know Nick said, "Can I take the field against Caleb Williams for number 1?" And that
you can actually. It's on FanDuel.
Yeah, that's
Petro.
Well, that's what I was. Yes, go ahead. Put promo code Petro there. But I was going to say that, that is how big a favorite Caleb Williams is. I know, Jeff, you said you're not as big, but he is a heavy favorite to be the guy.
Oh yeah, no, he will be the guy. I just don't know if he's going to be great.
Right. But so if you've got a quarterback in play, then you got people that are willing to fire around picks, and it could, like you said, it could set up the Cardinals for a long time if they parlayed that into more picks on down the road. I mean, it would greatly alter how the league is going to shape things. All right, one more for me is the next week. Dolphins at Jets. This is one, by this point, you have to have Aaron Rodgers firing. The Jets have to be up and running. This can't be a Brett Favre Jets year, right? 9-8 is not going to be good enough because you don't know if you're going to have Aaron Rodgers back. So by now the Jets got to be firing, and this is going to be the last chance for the Dolphins to prove that they're still the real challenger to the Bills, Jeff. Like, I think this will be a giant game. I expect these teams to be pretty close in the standings, and it's going to be really important for both of them.
Yeah, and you're also going to find out, I think the 2 critical things for both these teams is, can the Jets protect Aaron Rodgers? We know about their issues at offensive tackle, and they didn't get a big name guy in the draft, and they're going to be relying on Mekhi Becton and Max Miller, Billy Turner, guys like that who've been hurt before. And if Rodgers was getting knocked around, that was a big issue for when Brett Favre with the Jets back in his run. He just couldn't stay healthy and got beat up, and they fell apart. And the flip side of it, the Dolphins used the first-round pick on Bradley Chubb, and they've got Jalen Phillips. They have all these guys they're trying to create pressure with Vic Fangio being a guy who's the guru of pressure packages. Can they do this? So I think you're going to see. I think this game will tell a lot about what's going to happen in the trenches, because the trenches will dictate a lot about what happens with these 2 teams.
Let's go, Jeff, to week 13, one of your games, 49ers at Eagles.
Yep.
That one kind of speaks for itself, right? This is for the number one seed in the NFC.
Yeah, and look, as great as the Eagles were, it's not hard to see the Niners having a far better chance of winning that game or even winning that game if Brock Purdy had stayed healthy. I think they match up very well with them. You can make an argument that the Niners have the best skill possession group in the league with Christian McCaffrey and Kittle and Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Now, what we don't know is if Brock Purdy is going to continue being what he was at the end of last year, coming off that elbow surgery. If they can stay healthy at quarterback, which obviously was a big issue for them last year, but defensively they're loaded. With Fred Warner and the safety Hufanga and Nick Bosa. I mean, they got players all over the place, and so this is a game to me where if you're the Niners, you're feeling like we missed a great chance last year. Philadelphia standing in our way. We're tired of hearing about how great Howie Roseman is. This is our chance to get the number one seed and get that game in San Francisco.
Eric, are you of the opinion that there's any way, or do you see a scenario that this game isn't, just vitally important for the number one seed?
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a quarterback. We've already seen him get hurt, and this time we've already seen
barring injuries.
No, probably not. I mean, right. The only thing that's really hurt the 49ers during the Shanahan era has been injuries to the quarterback. Now, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be for the Niners, but we know that whomever wins that job, if he stays healthy the whole season, like that's going to be a good football team. And I think similarly, I think Hurts, even though, really buoyed by situation last year, Hurts is a very good quarterback too. So I don't see it going south for either of these two teams. Detroit and the Dallas Cowboys are, I think, two of the other top four teams in the conference. I think they'll have something to say about the one seed as well, but this is a big game.
Yeah, a giant game. By the way, if you are looking to join one of the fastest growing companies in Kansas City, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, our proud sponsor here at the 2D Podcast, is hiring all positions, truck driver, project manager, operators, crew members, starting pay up to $30 per hour based upon experience, paid time off, insurance. Those are just a couple of the benefits. You can check out more at GannAsphalt.com. Jeff, let's move along to week 17. Bengals at Chiefs. This is pretty much a no-brainer, and we're
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, the next to the last game of the next to the last week of the season. Is this for the one seed, or is this to hold on to the two and keep touch with the Bills?
Oh, I think it's for the one seed. I think both these teams are going to be in the running for that. And as you mentioned, the Bills, what they could have been had they not played in the snow. I'm sure the Bengals think about Joseph Osai with the personal foul against Mahomes. They think about the offensive line being banged up. We're going to see if the moves they made, Orlando Brown Jr., who knew he was going to end up being such playing a pivotal role in two straight playoff races, Super Bowl runs. We obviously talked about him on the show a ton, but they're betting big on him, and we'll see if he can deliver. I'm not sure he can, but if they're able to keep their offensive line intact, the Bengals playing in that game that late in the season, you saw what they were last year. They were, to me, playing the best football of anybody in the league last year. And as much as the Chiefs have been great, this team has played in two AFC Championship games. They've been in the Super Bowl. They've won games in Kansas City before. I think this is like Ali Frazier. This is like one of those games you just can't miss.
Yeah, this is starting to look like it's Manning versus Brady here. But Jeff mentioned Orlando Brown. Eric, I mean, is that going to be a big one? Like, we're going to find out is the Bengals blinked first in the team building around the quarterback. They've still got to pay Joe Burrow. They can afford some mistakes and can cover them up as long as Burrow's not expensive. But a lot of this game will be about Orlando Brown better prove himself, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs know where the bodies are buried on Orlando Brown, right? It's sort of the same deal when Belichick gives up on a player, there's something up with that player, right? Or when the Ravens trade a player, that there's something fundamental with that player's ability that you want to fade or something like that. So that's the one place. Look, these teams have been closely matched. The fact that the Bengals have won 3 of the first 4 is really, I mean, they're all they're all 3-point games, right? They could have all gone either way. I think it's a wonderful matchup. I can't wait for it. Hopefully I'm sober for it because it's the New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch.
Getting dirty in the dirty South.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be. Look, Petro, can I stay on your couch New Year's Eve, or is that an off limits day?
Sure, come on. You can. I will have had Adam here, Adam Hill from the Las Vegas Review Journal.
Just tell Adam to stay the whole time.
On Christmas Eve, might as well turn around and make the wife thrilled that you're here on New Year's Eve. That'll be just a huge hit in my house. All right, Vikings at Lions. This is our last game. Eric, this is yours. Week 18. You've chosen Vikings, a team you never give any credit for, at the Lions on the last week of the season. I can't wait to hear how this shapes.
I wanted to look at Week 18 and see like possible division matchups.
Wait, can we at least observe, Terry? Hide the barbecue. You don't eat my mom's lunch again, like last time.
You guys are funny.
Got a missing Z-Man sandwich.
House.
That's right. We're short one Z-Man. Yeah.
He crushed her burnt ends.
Can we pause? Okay, let's look at Week 18.
Okay.
Bears and Packers. Chances both those teams are going to be in the race, 0. Cowboys, Commanders, 0. Broncos, Raiders, 0. Jaguars, Titans could be, although if that division is close, that game is going to suck like it did last year. Bills, Dolphins, maybe. Texans, Colts, no. Eagles, Giants, no. Seahawks, Cardinals, no. Falcons, Saints, absolutely not. Jets, Patriots, absolutely not. Steelers, Ravens, no. Rams, Niners, no. Chiefs, Chargers, Blaine Gabbert is starting that game. Panthers, Bucks, no. Browns, Bengals, maybe. That is going to be an awful Week 18. The only thing saving it is Sunday Night Football. My former boss, Chris Collinsworth, with Mike Tirico. Vikings at 9-7, facing the what would it have to be 10-6 Detroit Lions. Winner wins that division.
Yeah. All right. You painted so it's really about the schedule stinking that week.
I'm Week 18, man. I want that.
Yeah.
Eric took two NFC North games out of 5 that are crucial to the season.
Yeah, Packers, Bears to start it, and Vikings, Lions to end it. I don't know how both of them can be crucial. You've got two of the teams in the division. It's important up here at the top, but then at the end, they don't matter. It's these two teams that are important.
Yeah.
It's something to consider, maybe as we shape this up. All right, there it is. 15 games that are going to shape the NFL season. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live on Tuesday nights about 9:00 Central. We get things started here on the 2 Deep podcast. Remember, GAN Asphalt and Concrete proudly bringing you the 2 Deep podcast. If you need any work done on your parking lot, no commissions, in-house crews, free consultations, every project coming with a written warranty. You can find GAN Asphalt and Concrete online at ganasphalt.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Consumer Sports, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2 Deep NFL podcast.